Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Unofficially Opinionated. I am Christian, as usual. We got Tyraz Tim here. We got Nate and special guest Billy
Yo,
Otto.
yo.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Yo.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
guys.
feel welcome.
Excited.
Glad to
Welcome,
have you here
Billy.
today, man. This is going to be a good conversation. So, but before we get too deep into it, how you guys been this past week? Think things going all right? Nate?
Yes, currently I dressed like this because I was at a birthday party. Just reminded me that I don't like birthday parties. Or at least I don't like French birthday parties. It was very French, the birthday party. So, dressed up and stuff like that, not really just like out there and
Got it.
enjoying it. So, yeah. So there's that. But we are at the north of France now. So,
All right.
very nice.
Oh,
I
excuse
know.
me.
Listen.
A posh hotel room there.
Yep.
Doing all
Yep.
right.
Me
Doing
just
all right.
disturbing everybody with my loud laughing at 1 o'clock in the morning.
We've got multiple time zones here. So Nate, right now for you, it's what, about 1:40 in the morning?
Exactly.
So
Yep.
the party is still hopping for you.
Yes, it is.
Nice. Nice. All right. How about you, Tim?
Well, we had some painters come through and mess up stuff, and I had to go out there with the blue tape and be like, "That's a drip. That's a drip. There's no paint." And I'm dressed like this because I just left my couch. That's
All good. All good.
Shame.
No worries. We were not trying to have a collared thing going on today. Just Nate and I were just so happy to be wearing this. But you and Billy looking all right, so it's all good.
hey,
It's all
I'll
good.
take
It's all
t-shirts,
good.
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Billy?
Well, how about you, Billy? I think you said you were doing some travel.
Yeah, I'm helping my partner close up her apartment in Bondi Beach. So she was living in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, and we live in Byron Bay. But I'm helping her close the portal to her Sydney home because she's in love with her Malaysian man Billy Otto. So she's yeah, man. So I've been living on a farm with chickens and my beautiful woman, just working out, just getting ripped and surfing really good waves.
Okay.
But I've just been super busy in the studio, and honestly, just really thankful to have such a completely holistic life and to be thriving. And yeah, so I'm stoked, man. Yeah, it's good to be traveling though. It's good to be out of sometimes when you get stuck in the country for too long, sometimes I can kind of get into my head a little bit, but then when I go to Sydney or to cities, I kind of get into this kind of I see multicultural kind of spaces, people of, different backgrounds, because I'm from a little surf town in Byron Bay, which is a bit of a small little space. It's like a little bubble.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to get out, and I feel really refreshed and hungry again for my purpose in art. So it's good.
Nice.
Wow, that makes my life sound so boring. I was like, what have
Yeah.
I been doing? I've been going to the office. I've been coming home. The one thing we did do for us is we decided, so when we moved into this house, we decided that we wanted the dining room and the living room to kind of be reversed. So we basically used the living room as the dining room and vice versa. And then after 2 years, we're like, you know what? Let's switch it. So this past week, we spent time switching the rooms around, bringing in new furniture, and
Yeah.
I was being stubborn, and we had a entertainment center on the first floor, and I decided that I wanted that up here in the attic where my office is. So I was home by myself, and I wanted it done immediately. So I kind of carried had it come up 2 flights of stairs to get it up here.
Jeez, all alone.
And I'm 40, which is not the smartest thing to do by myself, but I made it work. I'm in one piece, and I got it up here. So,
And Carol didn't say nothing.
there's that. So, I mean, she was like, really? Why? I was like, well, you were going to help me. And, Jaden's been, he hurt his wrist. So, he's 16. He could have helped me, but I was like, you know what? I didn't feel like waiting for them.
Yeah.
So
When things need
I was
to be
stubborn,
done.
but I got it done, and I'm not too sore. So I think in about a week I should be back to normal.
Okay.
So this whole body is trying to heal up, but I don't do much otherwise. So it was good for
Okay.
me. So yeah,
Nice.
that's that's been the week. So I guess
Yeah.
Nate, you brought our guest here
Yeah.
today. Why don't you introduce us a little bit? Tell us how this happened, because I know you've been looking to do this for a
I
while now.
had, yeah, I saw, I guess I heard Billy Otto on. Do you want us to call you Billy? Is that okay, or did you want us to? Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
cool. Okay,
yeah.
so
Billy's
I
good.
heard him on this podcast called Ideas Digest, and I don't know how it appeared in my Instagram. It appeared in my Instagram as like a clip of it, and then I was like, wow. For some reason, I was just like, man, I would love to like do this episode, like hear this episode, see what he's talking about. And I listened to his episode, and he was talking about how he used to be Adventist, which all three of us, well, I used to be, and you two are still are Adventist. And then like how he went into his music and stuff like that. And I was like, man, like you just, Billy, you just said stuff that I resonated with. And I was just like, I want to. So then I
Yeah,
just sent a message. I just sent a message on Instagram to Ideas Digest. Like I just commented, and I was like, I forgot what the comment was, but it was like,
yeah,
"Oh man, he's ex SDA, so am I, or whatever." And then Billy actually replied, much to my surprise. I didn't expect you to reply. I was like, "Nah." I didn't even like it. Didn't even cross my mind that you would, and then you did, which was very pleasant. And then that's how we started conversing. And then I was like, well, I have a podcast. It's up and coming, so it's only been around for a little bit less than a year. But I would love to have you on. And he so kindly said that he would join us. And that is how Billy ended up on
yeah.
our podcast. Yeah.
Fellas, I'm
Yeah, he
here. I'm here
is.
for it all.
Yes. After Nate's persistence, we were talking earlier.
Yeah,
If persistence was a person, it would be Nate King.
Yeah, my previous
yeah.
job said
Made
that
it
too.
No, I
happen.
love
So,
that.
I mean, I guess.
No,
But he was like, you're just very persistent. And I was like, yeah, when I want something, I mean, that's all I see. But again, ADHD. So it's a thing. So, yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So I guess I'm curious, given kind of our similar background. I guess for you, Billy, how did you come into kind of pursuing like this music thing full time? Because it seems like it's such a integral part of you. When I've heard you sing and hear you talk, it
yeah,
seems to be such a part of you that I can't imagine
yeah.
you like not always doing this. So how did you kind of transition into like doing this thing that is so passionate for you?
Yeah, man. Well, it's probably one of those things I'm really thankful to the church for, because I grew up in a family that was super Seventh-day Adventist. Like my grandfather was a really famous Seventh-day Adventist evangelist in Australia and New Zealand, and so I just inherited this legacy of being really involved in church stuff. And I've got three siblings, so four of us together. My dad sings, and so I was learning how to sing in harmonies from like the age of 6. Like I
Oh
was
wow.
a multi-instrumentalist at like the age of 10.
Jeez.
I was like
I wish.
playing all these bands, and like when you're in church and you kind of like you're playing in front of 200 people every week as like a young little infant, like you kind of get very comfortable with. I did my 10,000 hours in music like really quickly.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like I haven't gone to university for music, but it's the language that I know the most, and it resonates with me the deepest and the most profound. And I used to be a pastor, and I used to be a high school teacher. I worked a bit in film, but music's just where I landed, where I was just like, this is actually my calling. I actually pastored as a Adventist pastor for 2 weeks, and 2 weeks in, like
2 weeks.
for a year and a half, but 2 weeks in, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I need to do music. I was like 27, and I'm 35 now, but it was just like, I knew, like, I'd try these certain careers and just be like, this isn't for me. Like, I'm an artist. I'm a sensitive artist who wants to create these worlds through my music and inspire people that way. But it's like, I learned my love for music through the church originally. Yeah. And so I'm very thankful for that, even though I don't consider myself a Adventist anymore.
Okay.
Very cool.
Excuse
Very
me.
cool.
That is
Yeah.
actually very intriguing. So yeah, you were talking about like, well, actually, before we actually even get into that, I wanted to make an announcement to our our listeners real quick. So I'm just going to deviate real quick. We are officially like starting our brand, the Unofficially Opinionated. So we are attempting to reach 10,000 subscribers on YouTube by the end of June. So 10,000 subscribers and 10,000 followers on Instagram by the end of June. It's a lot. It's a lot to ask, but we would like anybody who's interested in helping us going with us on this journey, or who have already been on this journey with us, to accompany us. Tell friends and family about who we are if you like the content, even if you don't like it. Still, tell others about it. So that's what they like it. Yeah,
they like it.
You can't hide it. So anyways, yeah. So that's the announcement. I'm sorry. I just kind of like, that was a horrible segue, but yeah. Anyways, yeah. So like, I had a question, just considering the Adventism thing real quick before Chris goes to his other question. You said you were a pastor. Did you go to a seminary?
Did I go to a seminary? Yeah, I went to the Avondale
Oh, okay.
seminary.
Okay.
Yeah, Avondale College. That's where Ellen
Okay.
White used to
Yeah.
live.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Okay.
right.
We're very, because
Got it, got
okay.
it. It's
Yeah.
it's just Go
No,
ahead,
because
Nick.
I was just going to say, because Christian and I, we went to Andrews. You know about Andrews. Do you know Andrews?
Yeah. I've performed there and preached there.
Oh, you did? Okay. I guess I
Yeah.
wouldn't put that past it. So.
Yeah, multiple times. Darien Springs, baby.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
Represent.
we also have another one of our friends who went
Honestly, when I was like 19 and 20, when I went there for the first time, I was actually blown away. There was just so many beautiful women. And I actually didn't lose my virginity till I was 30, but I was just like, at 19 and 20, I was like, there's so many beautiful women. Like, and I'm like, they were coming up to me. It's just like when you're growing up in like summer camp and
Yep.
like college, and everyone's like trying to be a virgin, and it's just like, it's a bit, there's all this sexual energy, but you don't know what to do with it. Like, I just remember them being like, whoa, there's so many attractive people here.
And you were a musician too.
Yeah,
oh,
because-
boy.
Oh, man.
Wow. The
Oh,
way you
and
made
so
it
is
through.
God's man. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
selling merchandise. All these babes are coming up,
Listen,
like Latin, Asian,
that
like
place,
everything.
at
Oh,
that
bro.
place, if you're a musician
Yes.
and you were like a
Yep.
preaching, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You probably had to have a stick to like
Yes.
beat them off of you. Like, please,
wild.
ladies.
Yeah.
I mean, well
Yeah.
done keeping your virginity until 30 there, because they had a nursing
done
they
at
had a
that.
nursing. Well, it was a well-known joke in their on the campus that for the pastors who were to be, like anybody who was in theology, or I think what was the 2 degrees, was in the seminary, or who was studying religion, I think it was, or something like that. They would go to the nursing department.
Mostly just
and
this,
that
like
is
all
where
the
they would
theology
find,
majors. Yeah.
yeah, that's where they would go to find their wife, and
Yeah.
and excuse me, and they had to know how to play
Yeah.
an instrument as well. So they had to be a nurse or be in the nursing department and know how to play an instrument. Man, I'm trying to tell you, it was a huge reputation all over the campus. So, but man, I don't know if I saw you that.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Do you know when you were?
Nah, man. Because you're like 30 years older than me, so no.
Holy! Do I look that
Nathan-
bad? I mean, like,
No, I'm just joking, bro. I'm just joking. You're way before my time now. Bro, this was like 15 years ago.
15 years ago. Let's see.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
it's even crazy to say that 15 years ago.
So let me see.
Yeah, because I left there in 2004. That was the last year I was
And I
there.
graduated in 2008,
Okay.
I think. Yes,
Yeah.
I graduated in 2008. Okay.
Cool, man. Well, I was actually
That's
there in 2008. I went to 2008. Yeah.
Oh,
There's like an incredible like gospel church that was there. I think it's still there.
yes, it's still there.
Probably
New Life.
I think, on the
Yeah.
campus.
New Life.
Yep.
I performed at New Life. Amazing. I
Oh.
loved that. Yeah, that worship service. Oh man, there was that. There's man, who was there? Roy Gain. There's all these like really. Dwight Nelson was still preaching there.
Yep.
He's been there 40 years now, which is amazing.
Wow, he's still there.
Yeah, he just celebrated like a 40th anniversary of being at that same church.
Do you guys know Japhet Oliveira?
That doesn't.
I remember when he was. I didn't know him personally, but I definitely knew of him when I was there. Yeah. Everyone's gone through there. I feel nostalgic even talking about it. Like if I was around there visiting my Adventist friends, I'd definitely go back to the campus and feel it. Like I'm really passionate about this conversation actually. Like, and I feel like more so now that I've come out and been honest, but being still respectful. Like more pastors want to talk to me, and not just to try to reconvert me, but just because in like a symposium sense, they're just interested about culture and ethics and how things change, my use of psychedelics, you know, like challenging monogamy, you know, like, or whatever it's been that I've tried. Because I've literally over the last 1 to 4 years like challenged every program that I've been fed from a child, and that's just been important for me. That's not for everyone, but like I had to challenge like monotheism and like fundamentalism, literal creation, I feel like the way that I was programmed was quite homophobic.
Well, it was.
And I feel like I inherited a very colonial perspective on like First Nations understanding of spirituality.
Right.
And so really like challenging every belief system, but not to say that everything in church is bad, but it's just like, for me, I love to investigate, to explore, to be curious. And so it's been really scary and traumatic leaving the tribe and feeling any sense of like ostracism. But at the same time now there's this like returning of like more conversations and like just coming to terms with, we can all still be friends, like I think there is a shift in consciousness, and I think there is more of a space for conversation and less than us and them, who's in, who's out. Like that's old school.
Right, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting how I think at a point in time it was difficult to have questions and like be looking for and like questioning things and still be a part of the organization, right? Like the church, right? So essentially, people had to essentially leave in order to really wrestle with the questions, right? I don't think too many people leave, wrestle, and then come back because
it's too late.
The environment just isn't conducive to that. But also, if you're gonna have, a group with certain beliefs, you kind of have to almost protect those in a certain way, right? So people kind of feel like, well, if I'm gonna start questioning these things, then I kind of need to leave to do that. Unfortunately, I know even the church that I still attend, it's still part of the denomination, but really, the church is Christian first, and it's like Adventist is kind of the second thing, right? And so, I hear people say all the time, like as far as a church people feel welcome at, the goal is that anyone can come in this building and feel like they can come sit down and feel welcome, right? And so, I think that's a really important piece of I guess moving forward with religion, even is being able to accept and not be scared of questions, right? Because I think God is big enough to handle us questioning what we've been taught. Because again, all that we've been taught is not, in my opinion, the ultimate truth. It's our current understanding of the truth.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
But this is also one of the reasons why, like I liked following or listening to you explain your walk, Billy, is because I had to do something very similar. So I am gay, and I was in the closet for, I was deep into Adventism. First of all, where I didn't actually have my own identity. Yeah. There's some stories that can be told
beautifully, Nate, because it's like, it's powerful. Like I'm assuming that you probably would have given your life for the truth. You would have given your life for the Sabbath. You were deep, like, and it was a heart conviction, and it was beautifully like a full. Or was it like, were you just going along with the crowd? Do you feel like it was a personal conviction that you had for a long time?
I feel like I just have this personality where I want to do what is right, and I was taught that this was the way to go, and so I went at it full throttle. Like I was just like, this is what I should be doing. I didn't question anything else. I had questions, but I would always answer those questions with what I knew um, other people would, other like the elders and stuff would tell me. So I'd be like, okay, well, you know, so for example, why do I feel kind of this way towards other guys, right? Well, it's just the devil
Yeah.
trying to lead you away. God can change you. Kind of pray the gay away sort of
Oh,
aspects, right?
pray the
Yeah.
gay
So
away.
but I don't know. I mean, I had oh, man, goodness, I could quote I knew all the Bible verses, the clobber verses by heart and stuff like that.
Mm,
And I don't blame this on Adventism.
mm.
I blame this on just kind of organized
Yeah.
religion in general, right? Um, but I had to step out. I had to step out of it and I actually almost committed suicide because
Brother.
my thought was I don't want to lead because this is what I was taught. It's better that I die than to lead other people away from the truth or from God.
Oh,
So yeah, I almost committed
yeah,
suicide
dude.
at
Totally
at
feel you, bro.
Andrews. So that wouldn't have been a good look, but yeah, it was rough time. But then
Yeah.
I didn't because of a certain situation. Like I had prayed and I was like, God, I'm going to do this if unless this happens, and this did happen. And
Yeah.
so I did not. So, but it was a struggle. It was a struggle
Yeah.
for many years. And I told you actually in a message, I was like, yeah, I suffered from depression. Yeah. So I was in depression thanks
Yeah.
to my
And that was one of the
ADHD
reasons
plus
why I was
this.
really
Yeah.
interested about this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But that's,
it's rough.
man, heart goes out to you, Nate, man. Really resonate. And,
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
but bro, like, I've literally had in the last 5 years since coming out, like, with my story, my friends who are gay or part of the LGBTQ community, like, it's been like, I feel like they've come to me like resonating with like, my dad's a pastor, I don't know what to do, like I'm 20 years old,
Yeah.
if I like, am I allowed to express myself? How can I be like, I've told my brother, but there's still judgment here. If my church finds out, they're all going to be like, I have just kind of, it's been like crazy to see. It's almost like a this secret alliance that people find with people, because you can't in a church be in a space where you can really have questions and be curious and be like, this is my
Yeah. Yeah.
orientation, this is what I feel, but it's considered bad. Like literally, my friends have been told that it's like, go to this camp or pray this prayer or read this book or do this kind of therapy, and so for like years and decades of your life, you're going to
Oh,
suppress
yeah.
the essence of who you are.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's so
It
brutal, man.
is.
Like, and the cognitive dissonance that comes from that,
Mm-hmm.
of you being in this space of trying to like women or trying to, it's so bizarre. And I feel like it just makes people go crazy when they have to suppress any raw emotions and raw feelings. And so instead of being a river, you become a reservoir. Just
Yeah.
like,
Stagnant.
you can't really be honest. Like, I feel like what you were saying, Christian, as well. It's like, in a lot of church situations, you can be curious as long as it leads you back to the collective truth, but like, what in nature is like that? Nature is so sporadic, different species, insects, animals, people, like it's rogue, and art is rogue, and it has nuance, and it has light and dark. But within the metric of a lot of monotheistic religion is like, no, this is the
Yeah.
way. You inherit our ethics and our perspective, or you cannot be part of our system. There's very little, wiggle
Yeah.
room, in other ways that within
Yeah.
fundamentalism.
I mean, I had started to question it a while ago. It was very hard for me to leave as well. It was the only community I knew. Like I wasn't even close with my friends
Yeah.
from university, so it was really, really hard to leave. I
Mm.
stopped talking to all of my Adventist friends,
Yeah.
with the exception of these two present plus another one.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I had to just kind of start over. But that was just for me. I actually thought I was going to kind of help the situation from the inside. It didn't end
Yeah.
up working like that. But I feel like I've been led down another path, which has been
Yeah.
I don't know, much better. But I do know that there are, there are allies within the Adventist Church who are fighting for
Yeah.
visibility for
Yeah.
just, not only the LGBT community, but also for people who
Yeah.
don't feel like they just fit into this kind of mold. Like they're helping expand the idea, the mindset of, what
What it
being
is
a
to be
Yeah.
follower of
Adventist.
God is. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a long road to go,
Did
but
you have any love interests in college?
no, I think I was too far in the closet for that. I was very
Yeah. Yeah.
I had suppressed. I think this is why I went into depression. One of the reasons that triggered my depression is that I was
Yeah.
so before I went into university, I was very sexually active, and then because I was living with my dad. So my mom is the Christian and my dad is not. So I was living with my dad, and so I had
Yeah.
more freedom to kind of explore, and I explored a little bit, but I never. There was no love interest at all. But when I did go to Andrews, I met
Yeah.
number of closeted individuals, and we all basically became friends, formed this kind of like coalition, like underground coalition or whatever. And then I went to Brazil to the Adventist Church in
Yeah.
Brazil, and I met their underground coalition. My goodness, theirs was like extensive. Like everybody knew everybody that was like in the LGBT community, and like some of them actually had. I mean, I don't know. I won't say that because I don't want to like blow anything up over there. But it was a really bad situation.
Yeah.
But they were really good people. Like they were really like just awesome people. Like we. Oh, I don't know. I just loved it. I kind of felt like just the fact that they were had like this underground thing was just kind of heartwarming, because I'm like, okay, well, we can't be ourselves or whatever, but still we
Yeah.
can, But there was a time where when I was in Brazil, I had already come out and I stopped talking to people. I was stopped talking to people in the U.S., but I went there to study Portuguese through this program that the
Yep.
Adventist Colleges Abroad (ACA), and there
Mhm.
was a pastor there that he came by and he asked me. I was with our group and he asked me, how I was liking my stay, and I was like, well, it's cool. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah. Well, I was like, listen, don't ask me because you don't want the real answer. He's like, no, I know. He stopped me. And he was like, no, I want the real answer. And so I laid it out for
Mm.
him. I was like, I think it's a travesty that you have all these LGBTQ people in this school and they're all underground and you don't know any of them. You don't know
Mm.
who they are. You don't know that they're
Yeah.
suffering. You're not saying
Yeah.
anything to them. I was like,
Yeah.
that's horrible. You're not allowing them. And then so he told me about his brother who was gay apparently, and he said his brother had run up to him one day, or they were adults, but he had come up to him, and he said something. He was crying, and he's like, "I'm going to hell," like and he was like, he tried
Mm.
to comfort his brother, but from his point of view, his brother was going to hell. um,
Yeah.
and so he couldn't comfort him. And
Oh
then
my
I saw
god,
it.
dude.
And I told him, I was like, that is absolutely ludicrous. He's not going to hell. And you're a pastor. You don't know this. So I was just very furious. I was not at the
Yeah.
guy because he learned the same thing I learned, but
Yeah.
just kind of at the
Yeah.
concept of, I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was just not a rant that I was like, I was expecting to go on, but it was
No,
frustrating.
it's beautiful. It's beautiful that you're sharing, Nate.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that really abhors me about the tribe that we have come from, in that young people are trying to live their lives and live their truth, and there just is not a safe
Yeah.
space for questioning and for expression, and then the impact of that, or the flow and effect, is negative mental health patterns, and then we don't even have like when I was growing up, like we didn't talk about depression, we didn't talk about anxiety, it wasn't even part of our vocabulary. In the church space, it's like when you have problems, you take it to God or you pray a certain prayer. You don't go to a psychologist. You don't go to, you know what I mean? Like it's so wild.
Yeah.
So you're in this thing, these band-aid solutions through fundamentalism is, okay, well, God's got, and so you get in this high, you raise your hands maybe if you're in like a liberal Adventist church or something, but then it's just like, I'm only going to therapy now in my 30s.
Yeah.
And like, I've had suicidality in my cognition and like, I never knew that I had these other tools that I could also go to. I think prayer is powerful. I think community is so powerful, but like, it's when you kind of step out and have these eyes to see that there's like, for me, when it comes to my mental health, because I'm so sensitive and I've experienced trauma as a kid, now that I'm outside the church space, I have a lot more liberty to kind of build, like, I take psychedelics, I have my therapist, I have cold water therapy, I do Wim Hof, I do yoga, I throw the whole kitchen sink at it. All these things that I've just mentioned to me were seen as very taboo and like, I don't know, is that satanic?
Yeah.
But now I'm like, man, these are all expressions of the universe. And, you know, like, I want to care about this vessel that I'm in. My soul chose this vessel. My soul chose this life to live. And I want to cultivate. And so if going to church, like, I just think that sometimes when we stay within our tribe so tightly that we just miss all these other tools. And, so I'm just about like really trying to, you know, try them all.
I think that's a perfect, that's one of the things that I fight for the most, is that people are able to, I feel like their minds have been so closed. We've talked about this before about kind of like organized religions. They just, I love the community that there's there, but the fact that they're unable to ask questions, their mind is so closed that they refuse to kind of look past kind of their ignorance is very detrimental, you know, and I feel like it prevents them from thriving. So that's, I definitely resonate with that. We did an episode actually on psychedelics, and Christian was the one that proposed the topic. And then
entheogens.
Yes. Thank you. Entheogens. So Christian proposed the topic. We all watched the show on Netflix, and I had decided, just because I struggle with ADHD, I had decided that I wanted to take psilocybin, you know, in a kind of in a therapeutic setting, you know, but it's not something I would have been willing to do had I stayed within the kind of, you know, brain confinement that I was raised in, you know? So,
Totally.
Yeah, we had talked with Matthew Gamble. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him at all, Billy.
Yeah, he's a really good friend of mine.
So we talked with him about the documentary, and he mentioned kind of, you know, him being a pastor, right, and how, you know, him struggling with ADHD and depression and other things, and how, you know, for him, you know, using marijuana as like a medicine, you know, he was kind of trapped with that versus the official beliefs of the church, you know. And I know even, you know, as far as other church employees that have, you know, gotten like prescriptions for marijuana where places were illegal, and the church was like, the insurance like wouldn't pay for it, right? They're like, we're not going to accept that. So, you know, it's unfortunate, but I do see hope for the future. Now it may be going slower than we would all like.
I'm impatient,
but I'm seeing more and more people, and right now it's a lot of people that I'm seeing are kind of older people, like pastors that have retired, that are now free to like express how they truly feel or how they've kind of come to understand. And I'm seeing multiples of them just posting in ways that I would have never heard them speak, like say 20 years ago, right? But I think one, they've gotten some age. I think two, I think as a society and also as a church, we're more comfortable with asking questions. And then I think the third thing is that since they're now outside, you know, like your paycheck doesn't come from the church anymore. I used to also be a church employee, which was, you know, that's a whole nother level of, you know, trying to live, right? Like I didn't have anything to hide per se, the same way like Nate might, but also like I don't necessarily agree with like the exact version of things that say the official church does, but also I was an
Right.
employee.
So it's hard
Right.
to.
So it's this thing of, so something as simple as like wearing like a wedding ring, right? Like some places it's like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
or even wearing a non-wedding ring, just wearing a ring, right? So like I wouldn't wear it to work.
Yeah.
Obviously, I work at the headquarters here in Maryland, right? But I would wear it to my church because my church, it wasn't an issue, so
Yeah.
that kind of thing, just dealing with that. So even for me, even though I didn't leave the church, leaving church employment for me was like a huge thing lived in me. My father is a pastor as well. So just, having all of that kind of culturally with me, getting out of that, again, it's not an extreme example like you guys, but still even just kind of being able to slide over a little bit, and be able to think a little more freely. And I do think change is coming. It may not be able to happen within the official organization, but I think the people, are starting to kind of change their mindset. I think it's the people are moving, because the church isn't the organization. The church is the people, right? And so I think there's a movement of people kind of shifting their thought process that I think over time, where those people live and what they call themselves, I don't think is as important as, I think as a society, us getting to a better place and thinking about orientation or mental health or all these other things, right? Where it's been taboo to even investigate, to see and question and understand like what we actually believe about these things and how these things actually operate in the world. So.
And we're talking about.
Yeah, totally, man. But Christian, I want to say shifts are coming, change is coming, but I do feel like the Adventist Church is like a Titanic, dude. Like, to me personally, I feel like these old systems, it's like trying to change the Roman Empire, man. It's like the Adventist Church is like 20 million people on the books, probably like 5 million in attendance, who knows? But it's just like this old fucking archaic system, and I love the church in so many ways, but it's like any old system, these things, like when it comes, like how far do you think the Adventist Church is away from really affirming on a global scale gay marriage?
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like it's probably never going to happen in our lifetime. To be honest,
this church probably never, right? which I think the people are moving. I think
for sure.
Like this thing, right? I think maybe never, but I don't know. I don't know how long this thing as it's currently constructed even persists going forward, right? Because the momentum is, I think, in a different way, right? And
that's the thing, man. It's like with all these old systems, they're old banking systems, the families that kind of own all the banks, like old like mining and oil companies, all these old systems that are so slow to change into like clean energy. Like the way that we do our, like all these old systems, religio, agricultural, like it's like, and I feel like for me, when I look at Adventism, it's like, I cannot believe some of the things that come out of the mouths of some of my friends that are still in the church. Like, I'm like, I love you. And then I'm like, are you in a cult? I don't even know. Like, who still thinks like that? Like, how can you say that about Aboriginal people? And about First Nations knowledge, like potentially knowledge in Australia that has been here for 60,000 years. How can you say that this is satanic? Like, how can you say that? You know, it kind of blows my mind that it's like, why are we going back to a Bronze Age faith structure when we're in the 21st century? And with that just comes like the slowest incremental movements, but I love the church and I feel like it does hold space. And for some people, the church is like the grounding of their mental health and their well-being. Like, and I fully affirm that. But then there is this polarity in myself where I'm like, man, maybe everyone would just be better if we all just left these like small church structures and just became part of the wider conversation.
Yeah. Well,
and I think there's definitely space for that.
Yeah, to that point, that is very interesting because, for example, my mom feels, you ask her, she feels like her life was safe because she found the church, right? And I think that is one thing. This is one of the reasons why I do love the Adventist church, as in the people, So I think like you said, I think it does have a space for it. The teachings definitely need to be adjusted, in my opinion. But for her, finding this group of people and then getting to know God, whom she did not know, and the walk that had on her was, very positive.
Yeah.
The problem is the kind
Yeah.
of the negativity that's inside of this brought her down. So where she could
Yeah.
have like flown, in my opinion, she now just kind of walks, sort of thing. It's my
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
personal opinion, but yeah, it has a space for it, but it's just it's
Yeah.
inundated with also. But I don't know. We've talked about this. Yeah,
Because
go ahead.
Christian and Therese, do you guys feel like you guys, if you were to be honest, are you guys cultural Adventists, or are you like, no, I'm all in, bro. Like, this is my thing. Like, this is my move. Like, where are you guys at?
Yeah, go ahead, Tim. You take it first.
So for me, when you call me an Adventist, it's more an ideal. I'm not actually active, you know, but I come from an Adventist family, so like
Yeah.
for the church that we all grew up in, my whole family went to that church, you know.
Whole family
Um,
ran that
Yeah. It's
church.
beautiful.
so and to see where my family's at now, and they're not all in the church anymore, and they all went kind of different paths and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it brought up a lot of questions for me about things, and
Yeah.
like on where my stance is on stuff, and what I
Yeah.
believe. I've always questioned
Yeah.
stuff, so I've never just like
Yeah.
been the person where he's like, oh, this is how it is. I've always said, okay,
Yeah.
really, because I can find other things
Yeah.
that say other stuff, and you can't
Yeah.
prove that. So we're just going to be in a standstill, and we're
Mm.
going to not talk. That's always how I've been. So
Yeah.
I've never eaten everything just because it was said or read.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting
Yeah.
because the Adventism, I think, is a little bit unique as far as some of the, I guess, denominations of Christianity, in that it's so much of a culture. The way that it kind of evolved and
Yeah.
came up, like it's not just like, like some denominations, people go to church on Sunday and then like that's it, right? And then I'll see you next Sunday.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
Adventism, it's so much like the food and the
Yeah.
terminology and the schools, and it's
Yeah.
so much,
Education.
and yeah,
Yeah.
it's so much of a,
There's a language as well. There's
yeah,
a language
yeah,
to Adventism.
it's such a
And even
cultural
you
thing.
saying that, I feel really
Yeah,
nostalgic
like
and kind
haystack.
of
Yeah,
viscerally
right.
emotional. Oh my
I
God.
introduced my family to haystack. I
Right.
mean, my
Especially like
husband.
American Adventism is like a whole cultural sect.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so I think like part of that makes it difficult for people to, I think, leave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it's like, leave completely. People may stop like believing it, but like these are my
Yeah.
people. Like this is my culture. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I mentioned before in the podcast that as far as Adventist churches, I go to this particular church now where I go. Right, I have not been to another church that I would attend regularly, other than the one that I go to right now. Because I found the church when I got here, and I've been there, I don't know, maybe 14 years now. And so, also that's the first church that I joined that wasn't my father's church, right? Again, he's a
Yeah.
pastor, right? So again, that was a whole new thing for me. But again, that church I feel connected to, right? That church is accepting and it's open. So that's where I go. If it were to get burned down or eliminated today and like it wasn't there anymore, I don't know where I would go. I might just watch Stephen Furtick online or try to move to North Carolina. I'm not sure, but who is not Adventist. But they do have Saturday services, so yeah, I'm not sure that I might make it work. But so I'm definitely culturally still part of the church. I'm still in membership. I still attend this particular church building. But again, if that did not exist, I know I'm not the only person that is really kind of, I'm still connected because of this particular church, and I can go here
Yeah.
and feel comfortable. If it wasn't there, there's a lot of people that just would be like, well, then I'm kind of not going anywhere. Like I'm kind of done with this because this is a safe space. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered the question or not, but I know I rambled
Yeah,
a
I
little
don't
bit.
think
That's
that
kind of
Which is our
where I was going,
expertise, rambling.
kind of sort of.
Because
But yeah.
we're all men of brown privilege, and I feel like it is important to acknowledge that all of our ancestors were raped and pillaged and colonized by Christian powers.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Resources from Africa, from Asia, going back to Europe, going to North America, slave union, like, you know, transatlantic, all of that, you know, and it's just like, it is a bit of like within my thought process of like, how have we completely relinquished all of our ancestral culture? Like, and it's so hard, like, obviously, like for us to trace back, you know, 500 years ago, to go back to our ancestors is really difficult to understand their totems and their practices and their rituals and their rite of passage. But it kind of baffles me that we were kind of forced into this Christian way. And obviously Adventists like choose to be Adventists. We haven't been forced to become Adventists, but it's like, I feel like we don't acknowledge that enough, you know, that it's like, we have been overrun by these Christian and white colonial powers. We're in these like capitalistic Western systems, and now singing like, you know, white hymns, originally white hymns, that have, you know, and they've been filtered through our cultures and things. But how do you guys come to that conversation as well, acknowledging like the last 500 years, and that we're still singing this Christian thing and wearing this Christian flag? But because I think that was like a thing for me of like, no, I've been told I've got to believe this way. My ancestors in Malaysia had nothing to do with this belief system and this white man's Jesus, but now I have to give mouth surface to this king that, you know, that I haven't actually, you know, I didn't consent to that as a child, but I've just been brought into it, you know. And so, how do you guys come to terms with that?
On a personal level, that being man, we're going there. So listen, on a personal level, I don't identify with any part of Africa. So I know that there's like this conversation in the U.S., especially when I was growing up, about, you know, they're like, we're African kings and queens and stuff like that. But my main like dissent of all this was, well, they didn't come back. They didn't come to try to rescue us, you know. So I don't feel like I'm attached to this place, to this continent, you know, to this tribe or whatever the situation is. So when I was thinking about it, I started out from where I am now. Like, I feel like I had to. So I heard what I have told people is God's voice, because that's what it seemed like to me. I heard it twice. The first one was while I was at Andrews, and it woke me up in the early morning. Like, before I woke up, it woke me up. And it said, I love you just the way that you are. And then the second time I heard it was when I was in Cologne-sur-Salève, which is in France. It's the Adventist college, I guess, in France. You have been there. Okay, so I went there for a year to study French. That's now why I'm in France. But I was in the dorm, and again, a voice woke me up saying, go sell all you have and follow me, right? So, and I knew immediately what that meant, which was I had to get rid of everything that I had previously learned about who God was and stuff like that, and had to kind of learn it at God's hand. I know that sounds like mumbo jumbo or whatever, but that is the experience that I had. And I told my mom about it, and she disagreed with me, but I was very convicted on it, and she was afraid that, you know, I was obviously going to lose my soul, or that I was following. She said, well, we know who that is. She said, we know that that's not God or something. And I was like, I think it is, you know, so we'll see what the results are. And I have led a very, I think, very blessed life. But I guess others can attest to it. Like, I'm just living my life. Other people can say, they can look at it and say what they want to. So I started from that aspect, as I had to forget everything that I had learned. I'm not even thinking about Africa, and start where I'm at now. And I have had my own walk with God, my own personal walk with God. I haven't heard a voice since then. I don't, I can't tell you for sure, like 100% sure, like if this is this or if this is that concerning God or the Bible or anything like that. But I do have this kind of unique thing that I've not seen anybody else have, which is just, I don't know, this kind of, it's supposed to, according to the Bible, you're supposed to have this kind of confidence, this kind of fearlessness and stuff like that about things that you would like to happen, but other people are saying, oh, that's not going to happen. And then it actually just kind of happens, you know? So I have had that unique situation, the unique situation where I can kind of see these things. I'm still working on it, trying to understand what faith is and stuff like that. But I use the Bible as my main source because I feel like because I can't read, Aramaic or Hebrew or anything like that. So I use the Bible as kind of the main source. And I'm just like, okay, I feel like God was looking out for me when I was a kid. He's brought me up into to where I am now, all by himself. So I'm just going to go and try to figure out who this is. I can't go wrong, because the God that I'm trying to know has only been a loving, accepting, wonderful being. So if I'm wrong at the end of the day, at least I was happy, and that other people who kind of associated with me were also happy. Like, at least there's that, So that's what I've had in my head all these years. That's how I've understood it.
Yes, it's interesting conversation, Billy, that you bring up kind of, and ancestral practices and rites of passage and things. I think, speaking of American, I'm going to use quotes for Nate, African American.
Obviously, it's such a loaded conversation in America, even compared to Australia.
Oh yeah, just because loaded, it's just we've been so disconnected from that, for so long, that I think a lot of it is, the first step is just recognizing that even say, to stay in Christianity, right? This particular version, this particular way of reading and looking at it isn't the only way, right? Like, and again, the European Christianity, they didn't bring Christianity to the African continent, right? Like, it was there before them, right? They brought their version, right? But like, where did all this stuff originate, right? It originated in that area. It didn't start in Europe, right?
Yeah, so that's interesting.
So like, there's a history there that is kind of been kind of buried, as far as how they even practice Christianity specifically. Forget other religions, right? So I think for me, even before I even go back to like the ancestors, I'm kind of in a place where I'm just starting to really recognize the fact that not only am I not infallible in my understanding, like, no organization is infallible in their understanding of even what I believe. So even within Christianity, even within Adventism, this person or this church is not the arbiter of what is true, or how to read this scripture, how to interpret this thing, right?
Wow.
So to me, that's step one. even in this context, is, hey, look, everything's open to question, everything can be investigated, and just because I was taught that this means this, that doesn't mean that that's what that means, right? And just because that's how it was translated this way by these people, everyone has an agenda, everyone has what they think something means. And so to me, it's really about get into the base layer of, who do I believe God is? What is this God like, right? That's how I then have to go and read and observe and understand. If I try to start with, what they said or what this thing says, I think it's a little bit backwards because, again, as we read anything or observe anything, our our mindset, our beliefs structures will affect how we interpret those things, right? And so the way I come at it is already going to be biased. And so trying to filter out some of the bias that has been taught to me is kind of where I am with that. So again, another long-winded answer. Tim?
No, it's good. No, really well said, Christian and Nate. I definitely resonate.
Let's see. Like I said before, for myself, I never just took anything, but I still carried that bias. So like when people would like some of my friends, they were African, you know, and they would tell me things about their culture or stuff I would see on TV. That bias in my head, that word pagan would in somewhere in the back of my mind.
Yes, dude.
And, you know, I'm like, no, you know, we have room for everything, but I would still say pagan. It's you know,
yeah,
it was horrible. But
yeah,
like I don't agree with some of with some teachings, with some of the teachings. It's kind of like what Christian said, you know, like understanding that Christianity as it is now, it wasn't a white thing. It came from Africa.
Yeah.
There's so many different stories that are mixed into the Bible that are from Africa, from other things that are packaged into Christianity. And I read these stories, you know, from other sources and stuff, and so I got so confused, and I didn't know what it was really I was believing in. But you know, I knew that to me God was God, and that's kind of the only thing I really needed to focus on. You know,
well, what do
all
you
these other stories
believe it? I mean, like, what do you believe in that in that type of situation? Sorry, not to call you out, but like,
because in this situation, for sure, Tim, Christian, Nate, like I fully see and hear all of that and all of you. And the thing is, for me, like I still find that like, why is one story better than another story? It's like who put the New Testament together? Do we really, really know who edited the scriptures? Who was there at the Council of Nicaea? Why are these white, powerful dudes in the Middle Ages like calling the shots at the end of the Roman Empire? Like who, you know, like why? And when you've got cultures that are so much older, even Eastern philosophies from China and Japan far outdate Christian sources, right? And then when we think about Indigenous culture in Australia, I can only speak on behalf of First Nations Australian understandings. Coming from Australia, it's like, you know, 30 to 60,000 years of deep connection to country, sustainable ways to live, close connection to the natural world, non-destructive. And it's like, for me, it's like, why are we so obsessed with a narrative that is so much younger, you know? And, you know, literally when I was a pastor in Chicago, I feel like 80% of my congregation was like immigrant families, incredible families from the Philippines, from West Indies, from West Africa, from Eastern Europe. It was so beautiful. But you've got like, I remember like on a hot summer's day in Chicago, all of my African brothers wearing these thick suits, you know, just kind of, it's so interesting. Hello, pastor, you are God's man for the hour, you know, and it's just kind of like these brothers from Jamaica. Like, what were they doing in Jamaica? Why did they like learn these stories? And, you know, it's just kind of like, I just feel like it's so interesting that these stories, they skip continents and contexts, and they end up in a place like Chicago. And we're like, we're trying to get along around this narrative that we take literally. And we're just like, you know, and so I just feel like sometimes like these belief structures and these fixtures can keep us so tight. And you can only imagine, Nate, how homophobic some of these statements were. I feel like Jamaica, for example, was known to be the most homophobic country in the world. Like, you know, queer killings every year, you know, like what? It was almost like the equivalent of like a witch hunt, you know? And so, but then it's just like, I don't know. I just feel like we like these
Mm-hmm.
contexts of like literalism and faith rituals and how they evolve and mutate and amalgamate, and then we and then
Yeah.
we're here.
I
But
mean,
like, and that's why I just find that we kind of just need to play with it. Like for me, I've come to a place. You guys have all kind of landed in a place as well where it's just kind of like we have to play with worldviews and spirituality, and the more like that's why I just find like I don't find that there's anything really wrong with the Bible or with church or with Ellen White. For me, it's like literalism is the
yeah.
problem. Literalism, like I find that with like the far right in the political sphere and the alt right, literalism, literal whites, like all these things, it's kind of like people just get too like fixed on these things that they think are absolutes. And for me, I'm like, conversation happens when we transcend the literal and we sit in this place. I consider myself a mystic, like, and I feel like we can differ in some ways, even in this conversation, as four different men living in the 21st century, but we meet in a space. The Aboriginal word in Australia is Dadiri, which means deep listening. Like I wasn't really taught how to listen to people that were different to me when I was in the church, and it's taken me decades. And I think you guys could probably relate if we were to be honest.
Absolutely.
It's like, how can you really listen to someone without trying to convert them, or listening to them so that you can come back with an apologetic opinion?
Right. or even listening the whole time, like, well, I know that they're wrong, but I will listen.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Like, I know I'm correct and they're wrong.
Yeah.
I'll listen.
But
Right, but
but
like,
I
oh, that
won't
was really nice how you believe that, but you're
Right.
actually wrong. But I'm not gonna tell you you're wrong because I'm gonna be kind.
But this is also why I wanted to kind of have this conversation. This is because I do want people to start thinking more and stop letting things be told to them. Christian and I and Tim, we have these like conversations, just like deep conversations about, what we were taught versus what we kind of are thinking now, where we realize that we have to question these things because for example, I kept telling my mom before I left the church, I was like, why is it that you all believe this, but you all have no power? Like you claim that you should be having this power, but you don't. You have nothing to show for it. You just have words that don't seem to be kind of, doing anything. So that's why I've always wanted to have these types of conversations. I'm not trying to dog religion or anything like that. I'm trying to tell people, open your mind, start thinking, start, questioning these things. There's a ton of different things out there. And I don't really think that anybody has, like a death hold on what is the real truth, which I think we all know.
Yeah.
And I think
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, to your point, Nate. Like it's really, I think about the verse just around like by their fruit you will know them, right? And I think that applies across, right? Like okay, I think that religion is wrong or that belief is evil, but like what is the fruit of it?
Yep.
Right? Like if it's good fruit, then I feel like something about that, not all of it is correct, right? But that doesn't mean that they're wrong just because they're not 100% correct.
Well, because we're humans.
Because neither am I. Right. Like none of us know all of it. I mean, if we imagine God to be who we think God is, there's no way for us to fully understand, comprehend, and have it exactly right. Right. The best we can do is try to observe and connect and understand the best we know how, and whether that's I, because of the way I was raised, have this Bible thing that's the kind of the closest thing I have, right? I know, Billy, you've got things of First Nations in Australia and other things that you kind of are able to pull on, and use that, and so to me, it's just I'm getting to the place where I'm loving to hear how other people are finding God in different ways that maybe I was taught were the wrong way. But the way I interpret Jesus saying, the only way through the Father is through me, I interpret that to mean if we get there, it's through him, whether it looks like what they said he looks like or not. Right. And so that's how I view it. Right. And so I may go this path or that path. If I get there, it's because that's where I'm going through. It may look like this, that, or the other thing. And I think, as we see people's fruit, and that's a big thing I'm thinking about just in the US and just the political climate and just, people that have had to just like not follow on Facebook anymore because the fruit is so bad, right? Like
Right?
you say you
Yeah,
believe
totally.
this, right? But then you want to follow this person, right? And again,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about who you vote for. I'm talking about who you follow, right? Voting is always a choice, like this one or this one.
Yeah.
I don't begrudge anyone a choice of who they vote for, right? But who you follow, that's a whole different situation for me. And I think, who you follow says something about who you are and what you truly believe.
Right.
Yeah.
And to me,
Yeah.
there's a lot of bad fruit out there with people that claim they understand or know God, right? And I think, unfortunately, you are very mistaken in who you claim to know.
That's a hot point right there.
That was a bit preachy. Sorry.
No, but
No, it's good, Christian. Because I in the last 2 years I've had so much mainly Adventist trolls when I've talked about I experienced an abortion with my ex a couple years ago. I experienced polyamory last year, or my drug use, or being someone who sings rock music and sings without my shirt on, and just kind of I get kind of told in certain kind of language that I looked up to you, you were my poster boy for Adventism, now you're the pariah, and now I don't like your influence on my children. There's that kind of thing that comes up because I'm trying to find my truth, I'm really trying to find out. I really feel like a guy, for example, in the church, we don't learn how to be in our hips and we don't know how to dance. You can grow up in a Latin culture or something, but for me, I was very stiff when it came to my body because my body was evil. I didn't masturbate for 6 years. I was so heaven's my home. Jesus is my guy. Purity, purity, purity. But learning how to really be embodied, to be in my vessel, to be incarnated using biblical gospel language has taken a long time, and it's painful, but because of all the fixtures from my worldview. And so my fear around getting help from a psychiatrist about my mental health, or even meditating, which has helped to save my life, because I thought the meditation was satanic for years, right? Yeah. But at the same time, what I wanted to bring to the surface, for example, I feel like my life in a lot of ways since I left the church has gotten more chaotic. And so as much as I've experienced, bouts of freedom, liberation, oh, will I have sex with one woman or with three? Will I do this? Will I do this? Will I do this drug? It's just kind of I'm not a crazy druggie. I've got one partner now. I'm monogamous again. But it's just me, trying to find my truest expression and curiosity has been really fucking painful. And to be honest, sometimes I wish I didn't leave. I wish I get nostalgic about how simple my Ned Flanders life was. Of just hardly heard neighborino, simple, one book, not tantric books and psychedelic books and the Yogananda and this, one book, have one woman go to one kind of church. People venerate you because you're a young, good-looking pastor. All this stuff. My life was so fucking easy. I didn't never worried about money. And even though I had certain problems in my life and my mental health was something, I weirdly was quite consistent in a lot of ways. And the dopamine that you get from going to church, insane. You're around, you're singing these choruses. You got aunties, you got kids, you got brothers, you got mentors. I miss all of that. And it doesn't matter. You step into the new age world and you have rituals, but it's not the same as church. And so much of being in the wider progressive spiritual world and being a musician, it's such a narcissistic kind of way to be, because it's about you and your growth and people hearing you and your truth and you finding your inner child. But it's not about the greater church body of Christ.
Yeah. Well,
I miss that.
I thought that I would. I mean, there are very much aspects of the church in general, the community, that I do miss. I understand the feeling of. Well, I guess I feel more grounded just because, just on my personal level. I just feel more grounded because um, what I'm trying to do is understand who God is. Like that is like my main goal, while at the same time exploring life
Yeah.
and trying to understand, and yeah, it's taken me
Yeah.
forever to accept the fact that I am okay being who I am, um, and
Yeah.
and also,
But can you Nate experience your sexuality now without a guilty
yes,
conscience? Like, do you feel like you're able to? You actually
yes, but
can.
it's
For
taken a
me
long
personally,
time.
like I experienced sensual guilt until like the
Oh,
last year. I couldn't masturbate.
oh yeah,
Yeah, it's taken me so long to actually feel okay and just like, and I have a lot of sex. I love my partner so much and she's so beautiful, but it's only just been now really in like the last year that I've been able to really sink into like sexual liberation in a true and
yeah.
beautiful way. Like, yeah,
I
but
understand your
I can't even imagine, bro. Yeah, yeah,
but it took me a very very long time. It has taken me over, I think, probably over 10 years, I guess. So a little bit more than a decade, of
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
learn to accept myself outside of, try to accept myself despite what I had learned about what they think that unnatural is, or what Christian or what God has to say about it and stuff like that. Understand that when God said He loves me just the way that I am, it was not, He wasn't lying, despite the fact that the whole church says He is lying,
yeah,
because basically that's what they're saying. He is lying. What I heard, He's saying, I love you just the way that you are. And not only did He just say it, showed me over the course of all these years, I have been able to
yeah,
just be like, accept who I am. And that's what I guess what's so powerful is because for me, I know that I can tell God, and this is not me doing lip service. This is me in my own personal experience. I try to only
yeah,
speak from my own personal experience because I used to speak from what I
yeah,
thought was supposed to be, but that was incorrect because I had
yeah.
there was nothing, there was word, whatever, it was just words.
But Christian and Tim, you hearing that, don't you think it kind of sad that it takes men into their 30s and
Yeah,
40s to really feel comfortable to really be in their full expression, whereas some people that don't grow up in religion can fully partake of that when they're younger, when they're 18, and save waves of trauma that they have to work through. You had to like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
I think that's also an
well,
argument.
yeah, I mean, culturally, I think even people that don't grow up in religion sometimes just culturally grow up in a similar way, right? Because
Yeah.
a
Oh,
lot of
totally.
these like these ways of thinking aren't even exclusive to Christianity or even religion, right? It's
A
so
100%.
sometimes it's
Yeah.
simply just from a cultural perspective, like this is what it is, right? This is labeled this is labeled that, and that's what it is. And to question it, is
Blasphemy.
anathema, right? And so I think anything that we're taught for 30 years to believe, it takes a long time to unthink it, and not just like unlearn it, but like take it
yeah,
out of you. Like I've said before in the podcast, it's
Yeah.
like something simple as jewelry, right? Like I mentioned that before, how growing up, like again, I was in a conservative environment where even wearing jewelry was like, we don't do that. And so even once I mentally got to a place where I was older, and it was like, you know what, like jewelry's fine, whatever. It was still several
Mm.
years of me having gut reactions to
yeah,
seeing people wearing jewelry up front at church. I would have a gut
Mm.
reaction, even though mentally I was like, I don't care about this. Why am I
Yeah.
getting bothered by this? And so it is like,
Yeah.
it's something as simple as that. Like it takes so long to truly kind of spend the time with yourself to not only like know what you believe, but also
Yeah.
like internalize it
yeah,
and then like
yeah,
live it. And
Yeah.
then after living it, it becomes a
yeah,
part of you. And so, and I think, us giving people the space to do that I think part of what makes all this work going forward, right? Is, hey, it's okay for you to question things, right? Again, we're looking at fruit
Right.
still, right? Like if you're out here and the fruit is bad and you're just destroying your life, then something about what you're doing, we need to like
Reevaluate. Yeah.
investigate, right? Like, hey, like what about your belief system is causing you pain and destruction and, ruining your life, versus, hey, you believe this specific thing and I think that thing is wrong. It's not for me to go tell you what to believe, right? I believe what I believe. And if you look at me and say, wow, like I like what you have, right? Like, what are you doing? What do you believe? Then I'm free to tell you. And I think even just looking at Jesus, like that was the point, right? It wasn't, hey, go out and beat people over the head and bring them into the club and then they can never leave. It's, hey, go out and live, and that should be attractive to people, right? Like that, like your belief system should attract people, and then they can come and learn from you, and you learn from them. And I think even just watching you, Billy, like your life is attractive, right? Like I'm just, my personality wise, I would never be where you are, right? But definitely talking with you, like I'm able to gain things and trade things and like see places where, hey, like I could be looser here or think differently about this over here, right? Without some kind of judgment or being afraid that, well, that seems too different than what I was taught, right? It's okay. Right? It's okay for us to all be out here pursuing and looking, because we are trying to get to the same place. Right. It may look different, but I think as long as we have the same essential goal in mind, I think we can learn from each other and kind of progress that direction.
Yeah, for sure. I love that quote from, I think it's from Ram Dass. I'm a big Ram Dass fan, and his idea that I read was, we're all just walking each other home.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a beautiful thing. It's like, and it's something like, it's an echo of what I did receive when I was in church. There's such a togetherness, because you're right, fellas, like when you're even outside the church, like a lot of my friends that grew up secular covet what I grew up with. I grew up with summer camps. I grew up with, people like giving me time, people investing in me, like growing up in a beautiful Christian community. But like, I feel like if we can kind of like just take these blessings and these like beautiful high vibrational elements and come into a space where we can have conversations. Like for me, like I'm never going to become a Richard Dawkins or a Sam Harris kind of thing where I'm just like tearing down other people's ideas. Like,
right.
I think religion, it's kind of like art. Like we're all like, as sapiens, we are meaning making creatures. And it's like we create meaning through sermons and through songs and through the way that we create like food, it's like, it's amazing, man. Like every time we sit down to have a meal, it's a ritual. It's like a church ritual. And so it's like, I feel like if we can just think of like, okay, like, most people agree on like 90% of things in life. Most people that you'd meet would agree that you should be a good person, that you should be kind, that you should forgive, that you should let go, that you treat your children well, treat your wife well. Like, it's just like, I think we agree on so much about like being, most people, when you go beyond CNN and Fox News and the divisive nature of these algorithms, it's like we genuinely like people are awesome.
I mean, we've had that,
like, people are fucking
that conversation.
Awesome,
I'm pretty sure this is why the world is still turning, because according to what we've learned in religion, like, the majority of the people on this earth are going to hell. Like, that's the way it's kind of taught. But we were talking, we're like, that doesn't seem to be the case. Like you said, like a lot of people that I know just want to love and be loved and just, I mean, and I think that's what it is. Like like you said, we give meaning to the things that we've created, and we have been able to create just a ton of things. Now, why would you take that and just like, just build a brick house and say this is what you have to live in. No, like let us explore the world. Let us understand what things are about. I mean, I guess I'm not asking for permission. I just do it myself. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like, yeah, if religions did allow for that, I think they're afraid is my biggest thing. I think that a lot of people are afraid because, when you read the Bible, it's if you read it through the eyes of a human, which are usually eyes of fear, it's very easy to misinterpret God as being God who's like vindictive and just like bloodthirsty and just coming for you if you don't do this, this, and this. And it's very difficult to read it in the other sense, which I have learned to read it in, which is God saying, well, in the beginning, you were like this. I can make this who you are, full of love and compassion towards each other. Let me show you, sort of thing. It's very difficult to come to those types of terms, but religion should allow for that. Like, that's what I would love. So that is my diatribe.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that we've just got to figure out ways that we can, like, I'm with you, Nate. It's like there just isn't enough education, I think, within these church movements on how to communicate like you just did.
Yeah.
Like that kind of, oh man, what's that word for interpretation that we use in theology? Like the way that, like, our exegesis, our homily, like the way that we go about like passing words and phrases, it's just kind of like, because like so much of the Bible is poetry. And I literally have scripture that comes to me every day. Set me as a seal upon your heart, upon your arm. Love is stronger than death. Jealousy is cruel as the grave. Solomon's Song of Solomon, chapter 5:7. Like, it's the most powerful, like, love scripture. And it's just like, when I think about, some of these layers of communication in scripture, like how much it's a travesty when we just want to throw the baby out with the bathwater because religions cause pain.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we think of like the Salem, the witch hunts, and we think of genocide. We just think of like, no, but it's just kind of like, I think there is like a deeper coming together now. And I feel like for me as a man, I'm 35, I'm a producer, singer-songwriter, I model, I do all these things, but it's like, even the way that I can communicate, I have such an edge in the world because I wasn't fucked up on cocaine in my 20s and just doing this. I was actually reading literature, and my mind is sharp, and I have such a foundation to draw from in the way that I make art, the way that I convey ideas, because spirituality is cool. And if you have been drenched in a tradition for some time, like you think about guys like Jay Shetty, one of the greatest podcasters right now of our time. He used to be a monk for 3 years. He has an edge. He fills arenas because he was showered in this incredible lineage and this of North Indian, philosophy and tradition. And so it's just kind of like, for me, like I still feel like I have such an edge because of the tradition that I came from. And it's like how to transmit and transmute that into beauty and into art, into deeper compassion. I think that's just the challenge of like, how can I channel all that I've learned and inherited into a way that is really high vibrational and loving towards all beings? I literally, even sometimes when I'm making love to my woman, like I'm like quoting certain parts of like scripture, it's just like, of just like learning how to give accolade, because like I learned how to really reverence the feminine when, like, I've never trashed women in my whole life. I grew up with sisters, but I feel like in the church, like I really did learn how, like, no, you treat your woman with respect. She is the apple of God's eye. She's the queen, and it's like, she's a daughter of God, and you've got to honor that, and I just shower my woman with loving affirmations. Like, I've just never been a rat bag of a guy because of how I learned to reverence the feminine in the church.
That's great.
That's amazing. I'm glad you learned that there. Well, guys, look, I think we've had a great conversation. Billy, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been a great conversation. I'm glad Nate was persistent in pursuing you as he does all things. Yeah. And that you came to be with us today. Yeah. Before we leave, Billy, is there anything that you want to let people know about that you're doing upcoming or places that they can find you online? Yeah. I have a podcast called The Beginning of Us. We're getting ready to hit 20 episodes, and
We've got tens of thousands of people listening in. It's great. Please subscribe, like, share that. And then I've always got new music coming out. Billy Otto. Find me on Spotify, Apple, everything. And come to a show. I'm going to be coming back to America next year to do some shows. But yeah, guys, I just want to thank you guys, Tim, Nate, and Christian, just for being legends, lords, and you know. But yeah, I'm on Instagram as well, and so like I'm so excited. If you guys want to contact me directly, or if you want to have a conversation with me, I'm always open for love and light. So yeah, tap in.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you, Billy. Thanks always, Nate, for doing all of our fine video editing work. He's the engineer on the back end. Thanks again to Tim for the graphic design pieces. Thanks to Jaden Moore, who is my son, for our theme music. We've got more music coming out for our reels here pretty soon. So again, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, Tim.
All right.
Bye,
Tim.
Thanks.